A horse without an owner and a woman betrayed by fate cross paths on a dark night. What happens next defies all expectations and changes the course of a powerful revenge forever. The late afternoon light flooded through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of Elena Morgan's spacious office. The Seattle skyline stretched before her, modern buildings contrasting with the intense green of the Pacific Northwest forests surrounding the city. At 35, Elena represented the perfect balance between strength and delicacy. Her shoulder-length brown hair framed a face with striking features and expressive eyes. Elena's hand instinctively glided over her 6-month pregnant belly. The navy blue silk dress perfectly outlined her maternal silhouette as she skillfully maneuvered her wheelchair around the sophisticated office. "Already talking to the baby, sweetheart?" Jason Blackwell's voice sounded from the doorway, soft and captivating as always. Tall, athletic, with penetrating green eyes, Jason commanded attention in any environment. His impeccably tailored Italian suit only complemented the aura of power that naturally emanated from him. At 40, he was considered one of the most influential and successful businessmen in Washington state. "She's been restless today," Elena smiled, looking at her husband with admiration. "I think she already has your temperament." Jason approached, kneeling in front of Elena's wheelchair to touch her belly. "Or your determination," he kissed his wife's forehead. "How was the meeting with the investors?" "We closed the deal for the new line of adaptive products." Elena's eyes shone with satisfaction. "Morgan Accessibility will expand to the Southeast next quarter." "I'd expect nothing less. No one can resist your charm and competence." Jason smiled, but Elena noticed something different in his gaze, an almost imperceptible tension. "Is everything okay?" she asked, furrowing her brow. "Of course," he answered too quickly. "Just a little worried about some negotiations. Nothing important." Something in Jason's tone alerted Elena. After 8 years of marriage, she knew every nuance of his expressions. "I'll finish some reports and meet you at home," Elena decided, not to press the issue. "Actually, I need to take care of some urgent matters. Don't wait up for dinner." Jason checked his wristwatch, visibly anxious. As soon as Jason left, Elena sighed. In recent weeks, situations like this had become increasingly frequent. The attentive and present husband was gradually transforming into someone distant and mysterious. Elena tried to focus on her work, but the uneasiness persisted. That's when she noticed Jason had forgotten his safe key on the desk. In 8 years of marriage, she had never had access to that private safe. She hesitated for a few moments, debating between respecting her husband's privacy and the growing distrust consuming her. Finally, she wheeled herself to the hidden safe disguised in the bookshelf. The interior revealed a black folder, some loose papers, and a flash drive. Elena took the documents with trembling hands. Substantial transfers to offshore accounts, contracts with strange clauses, and a list of influential names followed by exorbitant amounts. Among them, politicians, judges, and businessmen. Elena's heart raced. Jason's business empire, which had always seemed the fruit of hard work and market vision, now showed its hidden facet. Her husband, the man she admired and loved, was involved in a corruption scheme that moved millions. "This can't be true," she murmured to herself, as a silent tear ran down her face. Elena quickly photographed the most important pages with her cell phone and put everything back in place. She closed the safe, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. What should she do with that discovery? Confront Jason? Seek help? Who could she trust? When she arrived home that night, the mansion in the luxury-gated community seemed strangely silent and hostile. The large windows, which once offered a comforting view of the city, now seemed to expose her to invisible gazes. Elena approached the living room fireplace, contemplating the photo of her wedding on the mantel. She and Jason smiling, surrounded by friends and family. The image of a happiness she now discovered was built on lies. A noise at the front door startled her. Was it just the wind? Or had Jason returned earlier? Elena swallowed hard, suddenly, aware of how vulnerable she was. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. The noise at the door was just the housekeeper, Mrs. Baker, arriving to prepare dinner. Elena breathed a sigh of relief, trying to disguise her nervousness. "Are you all right, ma'am?" "You look pale," observed Baker, a 60-year-old woman who had worked for the family since the beginning of Elena and Jason's marriage. "It's just pregnancy fatigue," lied Elena, forcing a smile. "Mr. Blackwell won't be home for dinner tonight." "Again?" Mrs. Baker frowned. "That's the third time this week." Elena just nodded, avoiding the housekeeper's perceptive gaze. She didn't want anyone to notice her distress until she decided what to do. After a dinner she barely touched, Eleanor retreated to her bedroom. She opened her phone's gallery and examined the photos of the safe documents again. Each line confirmed her worst suspicions. Jason wasn't just the charismatic and generous businessman everyone admired. There was a hidden dark side that manipulated the system and profited from illicit schemes. An anonymous email interrupted her thoughts. The sender used a generic address, and the subject simply said, "Urgent." Elena hesitated before opening it, but her curiosity was stronger. "Be careful who you trust. He knows you found out." The blood froze in her veins. Who had sent that message? How did they know she had discovered Jason's secrets? Elena looked around, suddenly paranoid, as if she might find hidden cameras in the room. The sound of a car parking in the garage startled her. Quickly, she deleted the email and locked her phone. Seconds later, she heard Jason's footsteps coming, up the stairs. "Still awake?" he asked as he entered the bedroom, the usual smile on his lips, but his eyes alert, as if searching for something. "I've been having insomnia," she replied, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "How was your meeting?" "Productive." Jason loosened his tie and approached, sitting on the edge of the bed. "But I had an unpleasant surprise today. Someone accessed confidential company information." Eleanor's heart raced, but she maintained a neutral expression. "What kind of information?" "Financial documents, contracts." Jason watched her attentively. "Nothing an ordinary person would understand, but in the wrong hands." He left the sentence, hanging in the air, his penetrating eyes fixed on hers. Eleanor felt as if she were in a deadly chess game where any wrong move could be fatal. "That must be frustrating," she commented, shifting her gaze to her belly. "The baby is active today." The strategy worked. The mention of their daughter always softened Jason, who immediately placed his hand on his wife's belly. "My little Sophia," he murmured, momentarily distracted. Eleanor took the opportunity to change the subject, talking about the baby's room preparations. But while they discussed colors and decorations, her mind worked frantically. The anonymous email confirmed it. Jason knew she had discovered his secrets. She needed to act quickly. The next morning, as soon as Jason left for work, Elena called. Her oldest and most trusted friend, Julia Hayes, a lawyer specializing in corporate law. "I need to see you urgently," said Elena, without going into details over the phone. "It's a delicate matter. I'm in court until noon, but I can have a lunch with you," replied Julia, sensing the urgency in her friend's voice. They arranged to meet at a discreet restaurant downtown. After hanging up, Elena noticed a suspicious movement through the window. A black car parked across the street. Had Jason sent someone to watch her? Paranoia was beginning to consume Eleanor, but she knew she couldn't afford to ignore her instincts. She decided to back up the photos of the documents on a flash drive and hide it in a safe place. While looking for a suitable hiding place, she found an old jewelry box at the bottom of the closet. Inside was a necklace that had belonged to her grandmother, a delicate piece with a locket where she kept a photo of her parents. Elena had always considered it her lucky charm, especially after the accident that left her wheelchair-bound in her teens. Holding the locket, a wave of nostalgia washed over her. She remembered her journey since the accident, the painful rehabilitation, the adaptations to everyday life, the determination not to let herself be defined by her physical condition. It was this inner strength that led her to create Morgan Accessibility, a company dedicated to developing products that made life easier for people with disabilities. Eleanor hid the flash drive in the false bottom of the jewelry box and put it away again. Then she sent the photos to her personal email and to a cloud storage service, using a password only she knew. As she left to meet Julia, Eleanor instructed Mrs. Baker not to let anyone into the house during her absence. The loyal housekeeper nodded, intrigued by her employer's unusual behavior, but without asking questions. The restaurant chosen for the meeting was on a quiet street, away from curious eyes. When Julia arrived, she immediately sensed something serious was happening. "My God, Elena, you look terrible!" exclaimed the lawyer, sitting across from her friend. "What's going on?" Eleanor took a deep breath, looking around to make sure she wasn't being observed. "Julia, I discovered something about Jason that changed everything," she began, her voice trembling. "I need your help, but what I'm about to tell you might put you at risk." Julia listened attentively as Elena related her discovery, her eyes widening in disbelief. "Corruption schemes, bribes," whispered the lawyer, leaning over the table. "Elena, this is extremely serious. It involves powerful people. That's why I'm terrified." Elena nervously fidgeted with her napkin. "I don't know who I can trust." "You can trust me," Julia held her friend's hand. "But we need to act cautiously. Jason has connections everywhere." The lawyer pondered for a few moments, analyzing the available options. "I know someone in the FBI who's incorruptible. Special Agent Olivia Bennett," she finally said. "She leads Operation Clean Hands, which investigates exactly this type of scheme." "I can't go to the police yet," Elena shook her head. "I'm not certain about Jason's involvement. What if I'm misinterpreting? And there's the baby to think about." "Elena, you saw the documents. You know what they mean," Julia argued, but her expression softened when she saw the desperation in her friend's eyes. "All right, let's take this step by step. First, we need to ensure your safety." Julia suggested that Eleanor spend a few days at her beach house in Oregon, away from Jason while they gathered more evidence. But Elena refused. "If I run away, he'll know I discovered everything. I need to keep pretending everything is normal while I decide what to do." Upon returning home, Eleanor found Jason in the living room, although he should have been at work at that hour. Her heart raced. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice calm, but with a spark of suspicion in his gaze. "I had lunch with Julia," Eleanor replied, keeping her voice steady. "We were discussing baby shower details." Jason studied her for a moment, as if assessing the truthfulness of her words. "Julia, that lawyer who works with the district attorney's office?" he asked, apparently casual. "Yes, my friend from college," Elena smiled, disguising her nervousness. "Why?" "No reason. Just curious," Jason approached, caressing her face. "I'm worried about you and the baby. Are you sure you're feeling well? You seem tense." His touch, once comforting, now sent chills down Eleanor's spine. How could the man she had loved for so many years have transformed into someone she feared? "It's just third trimester fatigue," she lied. "The doctor said it's normal." Jason nodded, seeming to accept the explanation. "I need to get back to the office. I have an important video conference," he announced, picking up his briefcase. "Don't wait up for dinner." As soon as he left, Elena let out a sigh of relief. With each interaction, it became harder to maintain the facade. She needed a concrete plan, and quickly. She decided to research more about the names in the documents she had found. Using her personal laptop on a secure network, Elena began investigating the connections. An hour later, she had a frightening mental map. Shell companies, fraudulent bids, tax havens, and influential politicians, all directly linked to Jason Blackwell. Eleanor felt physically and emotionally exhausted. As if the tension of the discovery wasn't enough, her advanced pregnancy made everything more complicated. She decided to rest a bit before continuing her investigation. She woke up startled by the sound of the doorbell. The clock showed 7:45 p.m. She had slept for almost 3 hours. Mrs. Baker had already gone home, leaving dinner ready in the refrigerator. Cautiously, Eleanor approached the intercom. "Who is it?" No one answered, but the security camera showed a delivery person quickly walking away. Eleanor asked the community security to check the package left at the door. Minutes later, the security guard brought a brown envelope with no return address. With trembling hands, Elena opened the envelope. Inside, she found only a sheet with a typed phrase, "Be careful who you trust. He knows what you did." Her cell phone rang, making her jump in fright. It was Jason. "Elena, I need to talk to you." His voice sounded strangely calm. "I'm on my way home." "Did something happen?" She tried to keep her voice steady. "We just need to talk," he replied, hanging up immediately. Elena looked at the envelope in her hands, then at her phone. It wasn't a coincidence. Whoever had sent the warning knew Jason was coming to confront her. Quickly, Elena hid the envelope in her lingerie drawer and cleared the browsing history on her laptop. Then she transferred to the living room sofa, trying to appear relaxed, as if she were just watching television. 20 minutes later, Jason arrived. His behavior seemed normal, but Elena sensed the underlying tension. He poured himself a glass of whiskey before sitting beside her. "How was your day?" asked Elena, feigning naturalness. "Interesting," replied Jason, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "I discovered that someone accessed my personal files." Elena's heart raced, but she maintained a neutral expression. "At the office? A hacker?" "No." Jason stared at her, his green eyes suddenly cold as ice. "Someone who had the key to my safe." Elena felt the blood freeze in her veins. It was a direct accusation. A tense silence settled in the room as Jason's eyes pierced Elena, waiting for her reaction. She knew this was a crucial moment. Her response would determine the course of events. "Are you accusing me of something, Jason?" Elena opted to confront him directly, holding his gaze with a firmness she didn't know she possessed at that moment. "I'm just stating a fact." He took a sip of whiskey, without breaking eye contact. "The safe's security system records each access. Yesterday afternoon, someone opened it using my key." Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. How could she have been so careless? Of course there would be an electronic record. "And you think it was me?" She forced an incredulous laugh. "Why would I do that?" "That's what I'm trying to understand." Jason stood up, walking slowly around the room. "You've been acting strange these past few weeks. Secret meetings with your lawyer friend, searches on your laptop that you quickly close when I approach." So he had been monitoring her movements. Elena felt nauseous, but maintained her composure. "I'm 6 months pregnant, Jason. I have medical appointments, meetings with friends to prepare the baby shower, shopping for the baby's things," she argued, surprising herself with her own ability to dissemble. "And as for the laptop, I'm preparing a surprise for you, a digital album of our history together." The lie came spontaneously, and Elena noticed a slight hesitation in Jason's gaze. He wanted to believe her. "Elena," he sighed, sitting back, down beside her. "If you saw something you didn't understand, I can explain. There are things in the business world that seem questionable to outsiders, but they're just competitive strategies." It was her chance to get information, feigning ignorance. "What are you talking about?" she asked, with a confused expression. Jason studied her face for a few seconds before responding. "Nothing specific. I just want you to know that you can ask me anything." He caressed her face, but the gesture, once loving, now seemed calculated. "We're a team, aren't we?" "Of course we are," Elena managed to smile, holding his hand against her face, "and I trust you completely." The storm seemed to have passed, at least temporarily. Jason appeared to accept her explanation, but Elena knew she was just buying time. He would be watching her even more closely from now on. That night, lying in the same bed, Elena had never felt so distant from the man beside her. The man who had sworn to love and protect her in sickness and in health now represented the greatest threat to her safety. Rain began to fall outside, first in sparse drops, then in furious torrents, as if mirroring the turbulence in her heart. Thunder echoed in the distance, and lightning intermittently illuminated the room. "I love the sound of rain," commented Jason, breaking the silence. "Remember our first trip together? That inn in Monterey when we were trapped in the room because of the storm?" Elena remembered. It had been magical. 3 days of intense love, deep conversations, and plans for the future. How had they reached this point? "It was unforgettable," she replied with sincerity. "We could do it again," he suggested, turning to face her in the darkness. "A weekend away from everything, just the two of us before Sophia arrives." Elena felt a chill. An isolated place, far from witnesses. I'd love to, but the doctor recommended avoiding long trips at this stage of pregnancy, she improvised. Maybe somewhere closer. That restaurant in the mountains you like. Jason seemed to consider the suggestion. Maybe. Next week, perhaps. The conversation died, and soon Jason's breathing indicated he had fallen asleep. Eleanor, however, remained awake, listening to the storm lash the windows and planning her next move. The next morning, Elena woke up alone in bed. Going down to the kitchen, she found a note from Jason informing her he had to leave early for an important meeting. Mrs. Baker was preparing breakfast, humming an old song. "Did you sleep well, ma'am?" asked the housekeeper, serving orange juice. "With that storm, I could hardly close my eyes." "It was a difficult night," admitted Elena, massaging her temples. "Mrs. Baker, how long have you worked for us?" 8 years. "Almost that, yes," replied the older woman, intrigued by the sudden question. "And what do you think of Mr. Blackwell?" Eleanor carefully observed the housekeeper's reaction. Mrs. Baker seemed uncomfortable. "A good employer, always punctual with payments," she replied evasively. "Baker, I need honesty," insisted Elena. "Have you noticed anything strange in his behavior lately?" The housekeeper hesitated, looking around as if afraid of being overheard. "Mrs. Morgan, I don't like to talk about my employers' lives, but—" She lowered her voice. "About 2 weeks ago, when I was cleaning his office, I answered a strange call. A man asked about the package and said that the judge was already aligned. When I told Mr. Blackwell, he was furious, said I should never answer his phone again. I've never seen him so angry." The information confirmed Elena's suspicions. Jason was manipulating judicial decisions to favor his schemes. "Thank you for your honesty, Baker." Elena held the housekeeper's hand. "This stays between us, right?" The woman nodded, visibly nervous. "Are you in some kind of trouble, ma'am?" she asked, concerned. Eleanor hesitated before answering. "I'm trying to understand some things. If I ever need to leave quickly, could you prepare a bag with my documents? And basic clothes?" Mrs. Baker's eyes widened, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "Of course, Mrs. Morgan. You can count on me for whatever you need." After breakfast, Eleanor decided to call Julia again. She needed to accelerate her plan. "He knows." "Julia? He definitely knows," Elena spoke quietly on the phone, locked in her suite's bathroom. "Last night he confronted me about the safe." "My God, Elena," Julia's voice sounded alarmed. "What did you say?" "I denied it, pretended surprise. I think he pretended to believe me, but he's watching me." Elena checked again that the door was really locked. "He even suggested a trip to an isolated place." "You can't go under any circumstances." The lawyer was emphatic. "Elena, the situation is deteriorating rapidly. We need to act. I've already spoken with Special Agent Olivia Bennett, without mentioning names. She's willing to meet with us discreetly." Elena hesitated. Going to the FBI meant a point of no return. What if I'm overreacting? What if there's a legitimate explanation for those documents? "Do you really believe that?" Julia questioned gently. No, Elena didn't believe it. Each piece of the puzzle fit perfectly to form a disturbing picture. "All right, let's meet with the agent," she finally agreed, "but it needs to be at a neutral and safe location." They arranged for Julia to set up the meeting for the next day at a discreet cafe in the Northgate Mall. Elena would invent a doctor's appointment to justify her outing. After hanging up, Eleanor realized she needed a plan B in case things went wrong. She decided to make additional copies of the evidence and hide them in different places. Using her personal laptop, Eleanor created an encrypted file with all the evidence and sent it to 3 different emails: Julia's, her trusted doctor, Dr. Richardson's, and a third, newly created under a pseudonym. In the emails, she wrote only, "Keep this safe, don't open unless something happens to me, E." Next, she copied the documents to a second flash drive and hid it inside a bottle of prenatal vitamins in the bathroom cabinet. A perhaps too obvious hiding place, but effective precisely because of its simplicity. The night advanced and there was no sign of Jason. Elena tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Restless, she decided to check his calendar in the home office they shared. In the electronic calendar, she found a note for that night. Dinner, Cascade Bridge, 8 p.m. The Cascade Bridge was one of the most iconic landmarks in Seattle, famous for its night illumination that changed colors according to commemorative dates. Eleanor and Jason used to walk there in the early years of their relationship. Why would he be at a dinner in the bridge area without telling her? Driven by suspicion, Eleanor decided to go there. She asked her driver, Martin, to take her, claiming she was going to surprise Jason with a romantic gesture. The previous night's rain had given a respite, but the sky remained overcast. A cold wind was blowing when Elena finally spotted the imposing structure of the bridge, its lights reflecting on the dark waters of the Lake Washington. "You can stop here, Martin," Elena indicated, pointing to a nearby viewpoint. "I'm not sure. Exactly where he is, I'll call to find out." "Are you sure, Mom?" "I can wait and take you to the exact location," offered the driver, concerned. "I'm sure if I need you, I'll call." Elena smiled, reassuring him. As soon as Martin left, Elena maneuvered her wheelchair to a strategic point on the viewpoint, from where she could observe the restaurant closest to the bridge. Using the zoom of her phone's camera, she scanned the outdoor tables. That's when she saw him. Jason wasn't at a business dinner, but accompanied by a woman. They were talking intensely, leaning over the table like accomplices sharing secrets. The woman had dark shoulder-length hair and wore a formal blazer. Something about her seemed familiar. Elena zoomed in even more and her heart skipped a beat. It was Rebecca Sanders, a federal judge responsible for corruption cases. Her name was in the safe documents next to a substantial transfer. With trembling hands, Elena began photographing the meeting. Proof that Jason was involved with people from the judiciary, exactly as she suspected. At one point, she saw Jason hand an envelope to the judge, who quickly put it in her purse. So focused was she that she didn't notice the approach of a man until he was practically beside her. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" said the stranger, making Eleanor start. "Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." The man appeared to be about 45, wore simple clothes, and carried fishing equipment. "It's okay," replied Elena, quickly putting away her phone. "I was just admiring the bridge lights." "You're Elena Morgan, aren't you?" he asked, with an enigmatic smile. "I saw your photo in an article about inclusive entrepreneurship." Elena felt a chill of apprehension. Who was this man and what did he want? "Yes, I am," she confirmed cautiously. "My name is Tony," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I'm a fisherman here at Lake Washington. I've been observing your husband for a few weeks." Eleanor's heart accelerated. Was he the author of the anonymous email? "What do you know about my husband?" Elena asked, her voice trembling with apprehension. Tony looked around, making sure they were alone at the viewpoint. "I know he's not who he appears to be," replied the fisherman in a low voice. "And I know you're in danger." He took a cell phone from his pocket and showed Elena a shaky video. In it, Jason appeared on a deserted pier by the lake, talking with two intimidating-looking men. The recording had no audio, but the body language suggested a tense discussion. "I recorded this 3 days ago," explained Tony. "I usually fish in that area and hid when I saw them arriving. Something told me it wasn't a normal business meeting." Elena watched the video carefully, recognizing one of the men, Brian Mitchell, a police officer known for his connections to corrupt politicians. "Why are you showing me this?" asked Elena, still suspicious. The fisherman hesitated before answering, his gaze revealing a mixture of fear and determination. "My brother worked as a private security guard," he began, his voice breaking. "He was hired by Mr. Blackwell for a special service 2 years ago. After that, my brother changed. He started having nightmares, drinking too much." Tony paused, taking a deep breath. "He ended up having an accident. Before that, he told me he had witnessed something terrible involving your husband." Eleanor felt a chill run down her spine. How many dark secrets did Jason hide? "I'm sorry about your brother," she said genuinely, moved. "But I still don't understand why you decided to help me." "Because I have a daughter the age you were when you had your accident," he replied with simplicity. "And because I believe there are still good people in this world, people like you who use their power to help others, not to destroy them." Elena was touched by the man's sincerity. Instinctively, she felt she could trust him. "Tony, did you Send me an anonymous email. No, ma'am, I never had your contact. He seemed genuinely surprised. But that means there's someone else trying to warn you. A nearby noise interrupted them. Headlights illuminated the viewpoint as a car parked not far away. It's him, whispered Tony, recognizing Jason's vehicle. We need to get out of here. Quickly, the fisherman helped Elena maneuver her wheelchair via an alternative path, descending the viewpoint by a side ramp that led to a wooded area. I have my Jeep parked down there, Tony indicated. I can take you to a safe place. Elena hesitated. Going with a stranger represented a risk, but staying there, exposed to Jason, seemed even more dangerous. Let's go, she decided, as Jason's footsteps could already be heard approaching. With impressive skill, Tony slid Elena's wheelchair through the trees until they reached a modest but well-maintained Jeep. He quickly helped her into the vehicle, folding and storing the wheelchair in the rear compartment. Where are we going? Asked Elena, her heart pounding as Tony started the engine. To the abandoned ranch where I live. It's about 40 minutes from here near Redmond, he replied, discreetly maneuvering away from the viewpoint. It belonged to a wealthy rancher who went bankrupt. I take care of the place to prevent squatters in exchange for staying in the caretaker's house. As they drove away, Elena looked back and saw Jason's silhouette at the viewpoint, phone to his ear, apparently looking for something or someone. The road leading to the ranch was dirt, surrounded by fields and small rural properties. The full moon occasionally emerged from behind the clouds, illuminating the landscape in silver tones. Elena felt strangely calm, as if she were finally following the right path. I've never done anything like this before, she confessed, breaking the silence. Running away in the middle of the night with a stranger. I've never helped someone escape from a dangerous husband either. Tony smiled slightly. I guess we're both improvising. After about half an hour of travel, Tony slowed down and entered an even narrower road. A weathered wooden gate with the name New Horizon Ranch marked the entrance to the property. It's been abandoned for almost 2 years, he explained, driving the Jeep along a path lined with eucalyptus trees. The owner had problems with the law and everything went to auction, but nobody wanted to buy it because of the remote location. The main house was a simple masonry building with a porch surrounding the entire structure. Beside it were the old stables, partially remodeled. I live in the caretaker's house, that one there. Tony pointed to a smaller building further away. But you can stay in the main house. It's more comfortable and I've adapted a ramp at the entrance. Elena was impressed with the fisherman's consideration. Why did you go to the trouble of building a ramp? Sometimes I host visits from a social project for children with disabilities, explained Tony, parking near the house. They love seeing the horses. Horses? I thought the ranch was abandoned. It is, officially, but there are still 3 horses that no one wanted to take. I take care of them as best I can. He opened a genuine smile. Actually, only one of them is really a horse. The other 2 are older mares. As they got out of the Jeep, Eleanor heard a soft neighing coming from the stables. Soon after, a magnificent black horse appeared, trotting freely across the grounds. This is Valor, introduced Tony with evident pride. The only one born here on the ranch. He's skittish with strangers, but has a huge heart. As if to confirm Tony's words, the horse cautiously approached Elena, its curiosity overcoming fear. The businesswoman slowly extended her hand, allowing the animal to smell it. He likes you, commented Tony, surprised. Usually it takes days for him to accept someone new. Eleanor felt an immediate connection with the animal. Its intelligent eyes seemed to understand the situation she was in. Thank you for bringing me here, Tony, said Elena, turning to the fisherman. But I need to call my friend Julia. She must be worried and also needs to know where I am for our meeting with the agent tomorrow. Of course, but I suggest using my phone, offered Tony. If your husband is as influential as he seems, he's probably already tracking yours. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. While Elena adapted to the improvised refuge at the ranch, Jason Blackwell was tearing apart the mansion, looking for the flash drive with the incriminating evidence. His face, usually serene and controlled, was contorted in a mixture of fury and concern. "Where did you hide it, Elena?" he muttered to himself, searching through drawers and closets in their shared walk-in closet. Mrs. Baker discreetly observed from the door, pretending to organize clean towels. The loyal housekeeper knew something serious was happening, especially after the alarmed phone call she had received from Jason, demanding to know Eleanor's whereabouts. "Mr. Blackwell, are you sure Mrs. Morgan isn't just at some work meeting?" she ventured to ask cautiously. "She mentioned a meeting with investors today." "Don't meddle where you're not called, Baker," Jason cut her off, his icy tone contrasting with his usual politeness. "And if Elena contacts you, let me know immediately." The housekeeper nodded and withdrew, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. As soon as she found herself alone in the service area, she took out her personal cell phone and sent a message to the number Eleanor had given her for emergencies. "He's searching for something in the bedroom. Very nervous, be careful." At the ranch, Elena had just finished her call with Julia, using Tony's phone. The lawyer had been alarmed by the night's events, but relieved to know her friend was safe. "I've rescheduled the meeting with Special Agent Bennett," Julia informed. "She'll come to you tomorrow morning. She's concerned about Judge Sanders' involvement in the case." "Thank you, Julia. You're an amazing friend," Eleanor sighed, feeling the weight of the day fall on her shoulders. After the call, Tony offered Eleanor chamomile tea and prepared the master bedroom of the house so she could rest. The room was simple but clean and cozy, with a double bed and an old armchair near the window that overlooked the pasture. "It's not luxurious like your home, but I hope it's comfortable," said Tony, placing clean towels on an improvised dresser. "It's perfect, thank you," Eleanor smiled, genuinely grateful for the unexpected hospitality. When she finally found herself alone, Elena allowed the tears, held back for so long, to flow freely. She cried for Jason's betrayal, for the end of a marriage she believed was true, for the danger that now surrounded not only her, but also the baby she carried. Exhaustion finally overcame her, and Elena fell asleep, lulled by the soft neighing of horses in the distance. Her sleep, however, was restless, populated by nightmares in which Jason pursued her through endless labyrinths. Meanwhile, at the couple's mansion, Jason was receiving an unexpected visitor. Brian Mitchell, the corrupt police officer, entered the living room with the familiarity of someone who had been there many times. "So, she discovered everything?" asked Brian, accepting the whiskey Jason offered him. "I'm almost certain." Jason looked as if he had aged 10 years, his face marked by tension. "She accessed my safe and then disappeared. She must have copied the documents. And you have no idea where she might be. If I knew, I would have gone to get her already." Jason ran his hand through his hair in a nervous gesture. "I tracked her cell phone, but it's turned off. I've called all possible contacts, but no one has seen her." "What about her lawyer friend? Julia Hayes, isn't it?" Brian took a sip of his drink. "She certainly knows something." "I've already had her watched," confirmed Jason. "But she's too smart to be approached directly. She has connections in the district attorney's office." The officer placed his glass on the coffee table and leaned forward. "Jason, do you understand the gravity of the situation, don't you? If Elena takes this evidence to the FBI, we all fall. Judge Sanders, the governor, me, and you especially." "You think I don't know that?" Jason raised his voice momentarily, losing his composure. "Years building this scheme, millions in offshore accounts. Everything could collapse because of a pregnant woman in a wheelchair." "Who happens to be your wife?" reminded Brian with a sardonic smile. "The one you swore to love and protect, remember?" Jason shot an icy look at the officer. "I don't need your moral lessons. I need to find her before she talks to someone from the FBI." "My contacts are already monitoring police stations and hotels," informed Brian. "If she shows up, we'll know. But are you sure she didn't leave the evidence here in the house?" "I've turned everything upside down." Jason seemed frustrated. "She must have the flash drive with her." The officer finished his drink and stood up. "I'll reinforce the surveillance on the lawyer. If Elena contacts her, we'll know." After Brian's departure, Jason remained in the living room, contemplating the photograph of the couple that still occupied a prominent place above the fireplace. Eleanor smiled radiantly, her eyes full of love and trust, the same trust he had repeatedly betrayed over the years. For a brief moment, Jason felt a pang of regret. Elena had been the only person who had truly loved him for who he was, not for what he owned or represented. But the feeling soon dissipated, replaced by the cold pragmatism that had always guided his decisions. "I'm sorry, Elena," he murmured to the portrait, "but you chose the wrong side of this story." The next morning, Elena woke to the sound of hooves approaching the window. Opening her eyes, she saw the imposing Valor watching her through the glass, as if checking if she was okay. "Good morning, friend," she smiled, feeling an inexplicable connection with the animal. Tony was already up, preparing a simple but substantial breakfast. Eggs, homemade bread, fresh cheese, and seasonal fruits. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, seeing Elena skillfully maneuver her wheelchair to the kitchen table. "Better than I expected," she replied, gratefully accepting the cup of coffee. "What time will the agent arrive?" "Julia called a little while ago. They're on their way, should be here in about an hour." Eleanor nodded, feeling a mixture of apprehension and determination. It was the day she would finally expose Jason's crimes to the proper authorities. There was no turning back. "Tony, I need to ask you one more favor," she said, after a few minutes of comfortable silence. "Can I borrow your phone again? I want to check if my personal assistant Megan received any message from me." The fisherman promptly handed her the device. Eleanor accessed her email using the phone's browser and found several urgent messages from Megan, informing her that Jason was desperately looking for her, claiming concern about her mental health and the babies. "He's constructing a narrative," murmured Eleanor, indignant. "He wants to make it seem like I'm unstable, maybe even suicidal." "Classic manipulator strategy," commented Tony. "Discredit the victim before she can accuse him." The roar of an engine announced the arrival of visitors to the ranch. Eleanor and Tony exchanged tense looks as an official, discreet and unmarked car parked near the main house. Julia was the first to get out of the vehicle, her face showing clear signs of concern. Right behind her, a middle-aged woman with short, grey hair and a firm posture carefully observed the environment. Eleanor immediately recognized Special Agent Olivia Bennett, famous for her unwavering integrity and for leading operations against corruption schemes. "Eleanor," Julia ran to hug her friend. "We were so worried. Are you okay?" "I am," assured Eleanor, returning the hug. Thanks to Tony, Agent Bennett approached, extending her hand to Eleanor. "Mrs. Morgan, I'm Olivia Bennett, FBI. Your friend told me part of the situation, but I need to hear everything directly from you." "Of course," agreed Elena. "We can talk inside the house." In the simple living room of the ranch, Elena related in detail her discovery of the documents in Jason's safe, the suspicious transfers, the names of politicians and magistrates, including Judge Rebecca Sanders. She also described her husband's increasingly threatening behavior and the meeting she had witnessed between him and the judge the night before. The agent listened attentively, making occasional notes. Her experienced face revealed little, but her perceptive eyes didn't miss a single detail. "Do you have copies of these documents?" she finally asked. Elena nodded, removing the flash drive she kept with her. "It's all here. Transfers, names, dates, amounts. There are also compromising emails between Jason and some politicians discussing fraudulent bids." Olivia connected the flash drive to her laptop and examined the files with growing interest. Her professional demeanor didn't show it, but Elena perceived that the agent was impressed with the volume and quality of the evidence. "This is pure dynamite, Mrs. Morgan," commented Olivia after a few minutes. "We're talking about a corruption scheme that could bring down dozens of powerful figures, including your husband, of course." "Ex-husband," corrected Eleanor firmly. "Our relationship ended the moment I discovered the truth about him." The agent closed the laptop and looked at Eleanor seriously. "Do you understand that these revelations will have severe consequences? Not just for Jason Blackwell, but possibly for you as well. Influential people will be affected and will do everything to protect themselves." "I understand perfectly." Eleanor held the agent's gaze. "But I can't pretend I don't know what I know. I can't allow this scheme to continue harming thousands of people while enriching a corrupt elite." Olivia nodded, seeming satisfied with the response. We'll need your formal statement and you'll have to enter the witness protection program, at least temporarily. What about Tony? Asked Elena, concerned. He helped me when I needed it most. I don't want him to be in danger because of me. The fisherman, who had remained discreetly in the background of the room, took a step forward. Don't worry about me, Mrs. Morgan. I know how to take care of myself. Still, insisted Eleanor, looking at the agent, I need to be sure he'll be safe. We can include him in the program too if he agrees, replied Olivia, studying Tony with renewed interest. In fact, your testimony about the meeting you witnessed between Jason and Officer Mitchell would be extremely valuable. Tony hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of becoming even more involved. I have the horses to take care of, he argued. I can't just abandon them. I understand your concern, the agent softened her tone. But we're talking about your safety. Officer Brian Mitchell is known for his violent temperament and his connections to organized crime. A tense silence hung in the room as Tony pondered his decision. Elena observed the internal conflict of the man who had saved her, feeling guilty for involving him in such a dangerous situation. That's when a loud neigh sounded from outside, followed by the sound of hooves approaching. Valor appeared at the window, his imposing presence attracting everyone's attention. Looks like we have another participant in the meeting, commented Julia, trying to lighten the tension. Eleanor smiled at the animal, finding in its deep eyes a strength that seemed to strengthen her own determination. Tony, you said you sometimes receive children with disabilities here, right? Asked Eleanor, an idea beginning to form in her mind. Yes, from a social project in Redmond, he confirmed. Volunteer work once a month. What if we could expand that? Eleanor straightened in her chair, excited. Transform this ranch into an official therapeutic riding center with adequate funding and qualified professionals. Tony seemed surprised by the suggestion. That would be wonderful, but how? My company, Morgan Accessibility, could invest in the project, explained Elena. It would be a natural extension of our work, and you would be the manager with an adequate salary and support team. The fisherman's eyes shone with possibility, but soon a shadow of doubt returned. What about Jason? Wouldn't he try to prevent this somehow? Agent Bennett, who had been following the conversation with interest, intervened. If everything goes as planned, Mr. Blackwell will be very busy with his own legal problems to interfere in Mrs. Morgan's new projects. Eleanor felt a pang of sadness, thinking about Jason's future. Despite everything, they had shared genuine moments of love, but the disappointment and betrayal outweighed any nostalgia. We need to act quickly, continued Olivia, checking her watch. My trusted team is already preparing the operation based on the preliminary information I received from Julia. With this additional evidence, we can accelerate even more. When do you plan to make the arrests? Asked Julia. Ideally, in 48 hours, replied the agent. We need to coordinate simultaneous actions in several states to prevent escapes or destruction of evidence. An alert on Julia's cell phone interrupted the conversation. The lawyer read the message and turned pale. Jason has just filed a search and seizure order, claiming that Elena suffers from mental disorders aggravated by pregnancy and represents a danger to herself and the baby, she informed, her voice trembling with indignation. He's requesting her compulsory admission to a psychiatric clinic. Eleanor felt the blood freeze in her veins. Jason's desperation was leading him to even more dangerous extremes. And guess who's the judge who will analyze the request? Continued Julia with a somber expression. Rebecca Sanders. The name fell like a bomb in the room. The same judge Elena had seen receiving an envelope from Jason the night before now held the power to decide on her freedom. This can't be a coincidence. Elena gripped the arms of her wheelchair, trying to control the tremor in her hands. He's using the system to his advantage again. Agent Bennett frowned, visibly concerned with this new development. This complicates our operation, she admitted. If the judge issues the warrant, officially we would have to comply with it, which would mean delivering Elena directly into Jason's hands. We can't allow this, protested Julia. Is there any way to prevent the decision? Olivia reflected for a few moments before responding. I can advance part of the operation. I have sufficient grounds to request Judge Sanders' preventive detention for passive corruption based on the evidence Elena has presented to us. This would prevent her from judging any case, including this request for internment. But wouldn't that alert the other people involved? Questioned Tony, who was following everything attentively. It's a calculated risk, agreed the agent. But between alerting some members of the scheme and allowing Elena to be interned against her will, I prefer the first option. Elena felt a wave of gratitude toward the agent. Amid so many authority figures corrupted by power, it was comforting to find someone who was still guided by true justice. What should I do in the meantime? Asked Elena. Remain here in safety, instructed Olivia, standing up. I'll leave 2 trusted agents to protect you. Don't communicate with anyone other than Julia, and don't use your personal cell phone at all. The agent collected her notes and the flash drive with the evidence, preparing to leave. I'll return as soon as possible with news, she promised. If everything goes as planned, in less than a week, this nightmare will be over, Mrs. Morgan. After Olivia's departure, Eleanor, Julia, and Tony remained silent for a few moments, each absorbing the gravity of the situation and the decisions they had made. 2 nights passed since Agent Bennett's visit. Eleanor was on the porch of the main house, watching the sunset that tinged the sky in orange and pink hues. Her hand absently caressed her prominent belly, while her thoughts wandered between concerns and hopes for the future. A few meters away, Valor grazed peacefully, occasionally raising his head to check Elena's presence, as if wanting to ensure she remained safe. The connection between the two strengthened each day, to Tony's surprise, who had never seen the animal show such affection for a human. He seems to have chosen you as his person, commented the fisherman, approaching with 2 cups of tea. In all these years, I've never seen him so attached to someone. Elena accepted the hot drink with gratitude. The nights in the countryside were significantly colder than in the city. I think we recognize each other somehow, she replied, observing the imposing animal. Both survivors, both marked by difficult experiences, but still resilient. Tony nodded, understanding the depth of that observation. The tranquility of the moment was interrupted by Julia's arrival, driving her own car. Her countenance revealed important news. We did it, Elena, announced the lawyer, barely containing her excitement as she approached the porch. Judge Sanders was arrested this morning in an FBI operation. Her phone had been tapped for weeks, and they intercepted explicit conversations about selling sentences. Eleanor felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. What about the compulsory internment request? Automatically archived, Julia smiled. With the judge's arrest, all her processes were redistributed, and the judge who received your case immediately perceived the irregularity of the request. In fact, the medical board has already opened an investigation against the psychiatrist who signed the false report. Elena took a deep breath, feeling an enormous weight removed from her shoulders. And Jason? Any news? Julia's smile disappeared, replaced by a grave expression. He's disappeared, Elena. When the FBI went to execute the arrest warrant at your house, they found only Mrs. Baker, completely frightened. According to her, he left hurriedly last night, taking only a small suitcase. A chill ran down Elena's spine. The fact that Jason was on the run made the situation even more dangerous. He knows it was me, she murmured, feeling fear grow again. He'll blame me for all of this. That's why the FBI agents will continue protecting you, assured Julia. Agent Bennett believes he'll try to leave the country, probably for Canada or Mexico. She's already issued an alert at all borders. Tony, who had remained silent, spoke up. Don't underestimate a desperate man. If he discovers where Elena is hiding, he didn't need to complete the sentence. Everyone understood the risk. The operation is happening faster than expected, continued Julia, trying to sound optimistic. Officer Mitchell was also arrested today, as well as 3 businessmen and a state senator. The evidence you gathered, Elena, was more comprehensive than we imagined. And Morgan accessibility? Asked Elena, concerned about her company. My absence must be causing speculation. Megan is managing everything competently, reassured Julia. We've internally announced that you're resting on medical recommendation due to the pregnancy. Investors and partners accepted the explanation without questioning. As they talked, the sun disappeared on the horizon and the sky gradually darkened. Valor suddenly raised his head, ears alert, attentive to some distant sound. "What is it, friend?" asked Tony, noticing the animal's behavior. In response, Valor neighed and began trotting towards the property entrance. The three exchanged apprehensive looks. "I'll check," decided Tony, heading towards the jeep parked near the house. "It's probably just some wild animal, but better to be sure." "Be careful," urged Elena, feeling an inexplicable uneasiness. Julia helped Elena enter the house, closing doors and windows as a precaution. The two FBI agents assigned to Elena's protection approached, alerted by the movement. "Any problem, ma'am?" asked one of them, hand discreetly positioned near the weapon on his waist. "We don't know yet," replied Elena. "Mr. Tony went to check on a suspicious noise." The agent signaled to his partner, who immediately left to assist in the verification. Eleanor and Julia remained in the living room, tense, awaiting news. 10 minutes passed without any communication. Concern grew with each second. "Something's wrong," murmured Julia, pacing back and forth. "They should have returned by now, or at least made contact." At that moment, Julia's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered, putting it on speakerphone. "Julia Hayes." "Hello, Julia." Jason's voice sounded through the device, freezing the blood of both women. "I imagine you're with my wife now. Could you ask her to come meet her fisherman? Friend, he's anxious to see her." "Jason," Elena managed to say, her voice trembling, "what have you done to Tony?" A humorless laugh preceded the response. "Nothing yet, darling, but that depends entirely on you. Come to the barn alone and no one will get hurt. Try something heroic, and well, you know how this ends." The call ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Elena and Julia exchanged looks of terror. "The agents," remembered Julia. "We need to warn them. There's no time." Elena was already moving her wheelchair towards the door. If Jason is with Tony in the barn, the agents have probably already been neutralized. He wouldn't make such a threat without having control of the situation. "Eleanor, you can't go. It's exactly what he wants." Julia tried to stop her, positioning herself in front of the door. "I have no choice." The determination in Elena's gaze was unshakable. "I won't let Tony suffer because of me. He saved my life, Julia. I owe him that." "At least let me call Agent Bennett," begged the lawyer. "We need reinforcements." Elena nodded, recognizing the wisdom of the request. "Do that, but don't come with me. Jason was specific. I should go alone." While Julia made the call, Elena took a deep breath, gathering all the courage she possessed. She knew she was about to face her greatest challenge, but she also knew she couldn't live with herself if something happened to Tony because of her. Leaving the house, the cool night air enveloped Elena. The full moon illuminated the path to the barn, an old building about 100 meters from the main house. The elongated shadows of the trees seemed like ghostly figures dancing with the breeze. Halfway there, a movement to her right caught her attention. It was Valor, hidden among the trees, watching her attentively. The horse seemed restless but didn't approach. Elena had the strange feeling that he understood the gravity of the situation and was waiting for the right moment to act. Upon reaching the barn entrance, Elena stopped, her heart beating erratically in her chest. The door was ajar, and a weak, yellowish light came from inside. "Jason," Elena called, carefully pushing the barn door. "I'm here as you asked." The interior of the old building was partially illuminated by a gas lantern placed on a hay bale. Tony was sitting in an improvised chair, hands tied behind his back, a trickle of blood running from his temple. He seemed dazed, but conscious. Jason emerged from the shadows, his once handsome face now contorted by a mixture of fury and desperation. His eyes, once captivating, displayed a feverish gleam that Elena had never seen before. "Finally, the family is reunited," he said, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "My lovely wife and her fisherman friend." "Let him go, Jason," pleaded Elena, keeping her voice firm despite her fear. "Your issue is with me, not with him." Jason let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, Elena, always the heroine. Do you know why I fell in love with you? That determination of yours. That strength even confined to a wheelchair," he approached, circling her like a predator. "I thought you'd be the perfect wife. intelligent, influential in the right circles, and completely in love with me. I never imagined you'd turn against me. You turned against everything we believed in, Jason, replied Elena, following his movements. Against the law, against ethics, against our marriage. He stopped in front of her, leaning down to look her in the eyes. Don't be naive. The world doesn't work with ethics and morality. It works with power and influence. And I had both until you decided to destroy everything. Agent Bennett is on her way, informed Elena, trying to buy time. This place will be surrounded in minutes. You have no way out. Jason's smile widened, genuinely amused this time. Do you really think I didn't foresee that? He walked to a side window, pointing outside. See those two FBI agents? They're unconscious, not dead, just like your lawyer friend. The sedative should last a few hours, enough time for us to conclude our pending business and for me to disappear. Helena's heart raced. Julia hadn't been able to call for reinforcements. What do you want, Jason? She asked directly. Money? I have access to the company accounts. I can transfer a considerable amount immediately. Don't be ridiculous. He seemed genuinely offended. I have millions in offshore accounts. What I want is the flash drive with the original evidence. Elena frowned, confused. But, you know I've already handed the evidence to the FBI. Seizing the original flash drive won't change anything now. It will change everything. Jason raised his voice, momentarily losing his composure. That flash drive contains metadata that could incriminate me even more. Besides, you made backup copies, didn't you? I want all of them deleted in front of me. Eleanor then understood that, despite his apparent calm, Jason was desperate. The FBI operation had dismantled his scheme more quickly than he had anticipated, and now he needed to flee with as little evidence against him as possible. The flash drive is in the house, lied Elena. In fact, it was in the small bag attached to her wheelchair, along with her cell phone. I can take you there. Jason studied her for a few moments, suspicious. Do you really think I'm that stupid? He asked, his voice dangerously controlled. Your bag, Elena, now. Reluctantly, Eleanor handed over the small bag attached to her chair. Jason rummaged through its contents, finding the flash drive and the cell phone. Predictable, he commented, putting the flash drive in his pocket. Now, the next step is for us to take a little trip. I have a private plane waiting at a clandestine airstrip not far from here. I'm not going anywhere with you, retorted Elena, determined. Oh, yes, you are. Jason pulled a gun from the holster hidden under his jacket. You're my safe conduct, Elena. No one will risk shooting a man who has his pregnant wife as a hostage. Tony, who had remained silent until then, tried to speak despite the head injury. Leave her alone. She doesn't deserve... Jason turned abruptly, pointing the gun at the fisherman. You're nothing but a meddler. You should have stayed with your fish and your stories, but no, you had to play the hero. Jason's finger moved to the trigger, and Elena shouted, No, please, Jason, I'll go with you. I'll do whatever you want, but don't hurt anyone else. A powerful neigh echoed from outside, followed by the sound of hooves rapidly approaching. Before anyone could react, Vala burst through the barn door, pushing it forcefully. The impact surprised Jason, making him momentarily lose his balance. Taking advantage of the distraction, Elena advanced with her wheelchair, hitting her ex-husband's legs with all the strength she could muster. Jason fell, the gun escaping from his hands and sliding across the wooden floor. Vala continued advancing, positioning himself protectively between Elena and Jason, who was trying to get up, dazed by the fall. Impossible, murmured Jason, incredulous at the scene he was witnessing. His wheelchair-bound wife and a wild horse united against him. At that moment, headlights illuminated the exterior of the barn, and authoritative voices announced, FBI, come out with your hands up. Agent Bennett entered first, weapon in hand, followed by 4 heavily armed agents. Quickly, the situation was controlled. Jason was immobilized and handcuffed, while Tony received first aid. We arrived just in time, it seems, commented Olivia, approaching Elena. Your friend Julia managed to send us your location before being sedated. Is she okay? Asked Elena, concerned. She will be, assured the agent. Just a mild sedative. The medics are already taking care of her and the agents. As Jason was being led outside, he cast one last look at Elena. no longer of hatred or desperation, but something close to reluctant admiration. "You're stronger than I ever imagined," he said before being taken away. Elena didn't respond. The Jason Blackwell chapter in her life was definitely closed. 6 months later, the spring sun bathed the New Horizon Therapeutic Riding Center, recently inaugurated in the former abandoned ranch facilities. What was once a forgotten place had transformed into a vibrant space, full of life and hope. Elena, in her adapted wheelchair, observed with satisfaction the children participating in the therapeutic riding session. Each smile, each small achievement of the young patients filled her heart with joy and certainty that she had made the right decisions. Sophia, now 3 months old, slept peacefully in the stroller beside her mother. The girl had been born healthy and strong, to the relief of all who had followed Elena's turbulent pregnancy. Tony approached, leading Valor, the black stallion that had become the center's symbol and the favorite among the most challenging children. "He has a special gift with autistic children," commented the former fisherman, now coordinator of the therapeutic riding program. "It's as if he can communicate with them on a level we don't understand." Elena smiled, caressing Valor's muzzle, which gently leaned in her direction. "Some beings possess wisdom beyond our comprehension," she replied. "Valor taught me that true strength isn't in the ability to dominate, but in the willingness to protect and serve." Julia joined them, carrying a folder of documents. "The last contracts are signed," announced the lawyer, radiant. "The Department of Health has officially recognized the center as a national reference in therapeutic riding for neurological rehabilitation." The news was the cherry on top for the project Elena had conceived during her darkest days. What had begun as a temporary refuge had transformed into her greatest professional achievement. The FBI operation, which became known as Operation Ethics, had resulted in the arrest of dozens of politicians, businessmen, and magistrates involved in the corruption scheme. Jason had been sentenced to 15 years in prison, partially assuming his guilt in a plea bargain. Her ex-husband's assets, acquired with illicit money, were confiscated, but Elena refused to receive any financial compensation. Instead, she suggested that part of the resources be allocated to social projects, including the Therapeutic Riding Center. "Sometimes I think about how it all began," commented Elena, watching the sunset that tinged the sky golden. "An accident. In my teens that put me in this chair. A marriage that turned out to be a lie. A discovery that almost cost me everything." "And look where you are now," completed Julia, following her gaze. "Transforming lives, including your own." Eleanor nodded, feeling a deep gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. The scars remained, both physical and emotional, but they no longer defined her. They were just part of her story, marks that proved her resilience. Sophia awoke. At that moment, her curious little eyes opening to the world. Elena leaned over to pick up her daughter, settling her in her lap. The girl immediately extended her tiny hand toward Valor, who carefully approached, gently sniffing the child. "Look at that," commented Tony, moved. "Looks like we have another rider in the family." Elena smiled, feeling her heart overflow with love. Her life hadn't followed the script she had imagined, but perhaps that was exactly the point. The most beautiful stories rarely follow the planned path. As the sun disappeared on the horizon, Elena embraced her daughter, surrounded by friends who had become family. The future, once so uncertain and threatening, now opened before her like an illuminated path of possibilities. The journey continued, but now Elena knew she didn't walk alone, and that, more than any other achievement, was the true meaning of a new beginning.